The 1960s, a decade of radical change and innovation, not only transformed music, fashion, and politics, but also laid the stones for the video game industry, setting the stage for icons like Pong and Spacewar. So let me show you video games from the 60s that you forgot were awesome. First on the list, Spacewar. Developed by Steve Russell and his colleagues at MIT, Spacewar is widely recognized as one of the first digital video games. Played on a PDP-1 mini-computer, it pitted two spaceships against each other in a gravity-bound battle near a star. Its creation was a monumental moment in gaming, showcasing the potential of interactive entertainment and programming skills. Spacewar remains a celebrated icon, its legacy not just as an amusement, but as a landmark in the coding and design of interactive systems. Next up, Tennis for Two. Although predating the 60s, Tennis for Two is too seminal to omit. Created by physicist William Higginbotham to entertain visitors at the Brookhaven National Laboratory, it featured a simple tennis simulation on an oscilloscope screen. This game set a precedent for electronic games, illustrating that computers could be used for entertainment, not just complex calculations. Its influence is undeniable, serving as an inspiration for future generations of game designers and a forebear to the arcade and video games that followed. Number 3 on the list is Mouse in the Maze. Developed for the MIT Lincoln Labs TX0 computer, Mouse in the Maze allowed players to create mazes that a digital mouse would then navigate to find cheese. This game introduced elements of design and creativity, as players could modify the play environment, a concept that is prevalent in many of today's games. Its innovative use of interactive graphics marked a significant step forward in engaging the player in the creation process. Up next, Space Travel. Created by Ken Thompson, space travel simulated the solar system and allowed players to navigate a spaceship to various planets. Originally developed for the Multics system and later adapted to run on the Unix system, it was not just a game, but a tool that influenced the development of Unix. Its gameplay, which required calculating trajectories and fuel usage, introduced gamers to a universe of scientific principles, blending education with entertainment. Galaxy Game. While slightly beyond the 60s, Galaxy Game deserves mention as one of the earliest coin-operated video games. Installed at Stanford University, it was a variant of Spacewar, adapted for public play. It represented the transition of video games from university labs to more accessible public spaces, hinting at the arcade boom that would follow. Though only a few units were ever made, its presence marked the beginning of commercial video gaming. Next game on the list, Hutch. Hutch was a war game developed by the Rand Corporation, simulating a conflict between NATO and Soviet forces in Europe. Played on a computer, it was among the first to use digital technology for strategic simulation, influencing both military training and the development of strategy video games. Its complex algorithms and scenario generation introduced gamers to the depth and intricacy that video games could offer. Next on the list, the Sumerian Game. Blending educational content with gaming, the Sumerian Game was designed by Mabel Addis, making her one of the first female game designers. This text-based game tasked players with managing a Sumerian city, balancing resource allocation, trade, and city development. Its incorporation of historical and economic principles showcased the educational potential of video games, a path that many games have since followed. Who remembers Hammurabi? Inspired by the Sumerian Game, Hammurabi was a text-based strategy game where players managed an ancient city, dealing with aspects such as agriculture, population, and disasters. It is one of the earliest examples of a resource management game, a genre that remains popular. Hammurabi's simple yet addictive gameplay demonstrated how games could encapsulate complex systems and decisions in an engaging format. At number 9, Baseball. Developed on an IBM 1620 computer, Baseball simulated a 9-inning baseball game between two players. While graphics were non-existent and gameplay was purely numerical, it captured the essence of America's favorite pastime and allowed players to strategize and manage a team. This game laid the groundwork for the countless sports simulations that would dominate the gaming industry in years to come. Next up, Lunar Lander. Lunar Lander, created in various forms by several developers, challenged players to successfully land a module on the moon's surface. This game combined physics, mathematics, and timing, offering a simulation that was both educational and enthralling. Its concept has been revisited and refined in numerous games since, proving the lasting appeal of space exploration in gaming. Who remembers? Chase. Played on an EDSAC computer, Chase was a simple game where players navigated a maze while being pursued by a computer-controlled opponent. It introduced the concept of AI opponents in games, a feature that has become a staple in the industry. Despite its rudimentary presentation, Chase offered a thrilling experience, laying the foundation for future generations of action and strategy games. At number 12, Periscope. While not a video game in the strictest sense, Periscope was an early electromechanical arcade game that simulated submarine warfare. Players looked through a periscope to target and destroy ships, with successful hits rewarded by explosions and sinking ship models. Its immersive gameplay and physical feedback mechanism influenced the design and sensory experience of future arcade and video games. Next on the list, Fox and Geese. This game, developed for mainframe computers, was a digital version of the classic board game. Players moved pieces around a grid, aiming to capture or evade the opponent. Its adaptation from a traditional game to a digital format illustrated the potential for digital environments to reinvent and rejuvenate classic games, a trend that continues in the digital board games and puzzles popular today. Up next, we have one of the most popular video games from its era, Pong. Though technically from the early 70s, Pong's foundational impact on video gaming warrants inclusion. Created by Alan Alcorn as a training exercise at Atari, it became the first commercially successful video game. Mimicking table tennis, players controlled paddles to hit a ball back and forth across the screen. Pong's simple yet addictive gameplay captured the public's imagination, heralding the commercial viability of video games and paving the way for the industry's future. Up next, Computer Space. As the first commercially available arcade video game, Computer Space marked a significant milestone in gaming history. Designed by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney, who would go on to found Atari, it was inspired by Spacewar, but simplified for public use. Set in space, players controlled a spaceship fighting against flying saucers in a battle for survival. Despite its commercial challenges, Computer Space's pioneering role demonstrated the potential for video games as entertainment outside of academic settings. Who remembers? Noughts and Crosses. OXO, or Noughts and Crosses, created by A.S. Douglas for the EDSAC computer, stands as one of the earliest examples of a computer game. Designed to demonstrate a graphical display's capabilities, players could play tic-tac-toe against the computer. While predating the 60s, OXO's significance lies in its use of a visual display for interactive gaming, setting precedents for user interfaces and gameplay that would evolve into the video game experiences we know today. The 1960s and early 70s introduced the world to the concept of digital gaming, from the pioneering Spacewar to the commercially successful Pong. These games, while simple in design, were monumental in impact, laying the groundwork for the complex, immersive worlds that define contemporary gaming. They remind us of the humble beginnings of a now dominant form of entertainment, highlighting the creativity, innovation, and vision of early developers. As we look back on these pioneering games, we celebrate not only their contributions to the industry but also their enduring legacy in shaping the vast digital playgrounds of today.